You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault.
A moving hold helps to keep the characters alive by adding a subtle movement to the start or end of an action. It's a small pose change that's on screen long enough to register as an idea. Ease in and out is similar to a moving hold but is sharper in timing. Its purpose is to soften an action so it does not start and stop abruptly. Ease in and out is typically between 4 and 8 frames, and a moving hold is typically between 12 and 36 frames. I have two examples we're going to look at. Each uses both moving holds and ease in and out. The two different examples also use two different workflows. We're going to use pose to pose and layered. Despite the workflow, these principles and ideas of animation can be applied to your work. If you're interested in learning about the different workflows, pose to pose, straight ahead, and layered, I created tutorials for all three. Links are in the description. Lastly, thank you to all those that leave a comment. This video topic is thanks to a comment and request on my last video. Alright, let's jump into Blender. In this first example, we're going to keep things simple and animate just the arm using pose to pose. I'll show you how we can simplify the character and the rig so you can follow along. You can go to the Blender Studio page and download the sprite character so you can follow along. In this first example, we're going to keep things simple and animate just an arm using pose to pose. Here's what we're going to create together, implementing moving holds and ease in and out. The character is going to lift his arm and point. Alright, let's create a new scene and begin. First thing we're going to do is drop our character into Blender. Drag and drop, and it's going to open the scene exactly the same way it was saved. Let's go to the animation tab at the top and set up our work environment. Here in the dope sheet, I'm going to hit Control Tab, and we're going to go to the graph editor. Okay, my right panel here is going to be for the purposes of viewing. It's essentially my camera, even though in this scene we're not going to create one. But I want to get rid of the controls, and I want to keep it simple. And simplest way is just to turn these all off. And now I have just my geometry. And over here on my left panel, this is where I like to do my work. So here I'm going to turn these on. And it just shows controls and different ways of interacting with your scene. Okay. Next, I want to hide parts of the body so I can focus on just the arm. With our rig selected, I can hit N, and we can come to the Cloud Rig tab here. Under Settings, we're going to go to Detach Hide Limbs. Open that up, and we're going to start hiding things. So we're going to slide that head. We don't need the head. Upper body, let's see, we need the upper body. Lower body, we don't need the lower body. And that's pretty much it. You're going to get this chest. Unless you go into the outliner to hide it, you're going to keep that in there, and that's okay. Next, we're going to create a custom selection set so we can isolate the controls we want and animate the arm much quicker. If we come out over here to the data property, we're going to turn on and off some of the visibility, these bone collections here. So I want to see the FK chain, and that's the system we're going to work with. So I'm just going to turn this one on, and it's layer 2. Everything else I don't need, and I'm going to turn off. Okay, so we're getting closer. We're isolating the body parts we want, and we're getting close to the controls we need. We still are missing the fingers, and we're seeing too much. So we're still going to clean it up more and get it ready for animating. Okay, we're going to keep turning things on and off until we find the fingers. So that's on layer 6. Okay, and the only controls I want to work with are these fingers, this hand, this elbow, upper arm, and then we'll grab this torso control here as well. So just those controls on that side. And what we can do is come over here to this plus, click it, and it creates our own bone collection, and we can name it. Let's see, that's his left side. And then you're going to hit Assign. Cool. So all those selected bones gets added to this collection, and then I can hit that star, and then we only see those controls. So you can create your own custom controls or custom selection set really quickly. Okay, I want to get rid of this arm as well. And then our rig is still set to IK, so we got to switch that up as well. You can see it's not following. So a few more steps and then we're ready to animate. Okay, first let's get rid of this arm. I'm going to tab out, control tab out of pose mode. I'm back into object mode. And let's turn on screencast. There we go. And let's hide this arm here. So with that arm selected, actually just for this purpose, I'm actually just going to delete all those faces. There we go. Okay, nice and simple. I'm sure there might be a different way to hide and do this, but it's just a test, and I only want to see this one arm. So we can focus on the idea of moving holds and ease in and out much simpler. Okay, the last thing, let's switch from IK to FK for this left arm here. So back into our options here, hitting N, select the rig, and then we get that cloud option here on the right. And we got to come to this FK IK switch, and we want the upper arm, and this one's the left one, we want it to go, we're going to slide it so we go to FK. So with the rig selected, let's tab back into pose mode, test it out, and it's working the way we want. We've loaded our character rig into the scene. We've isolated a bunch of body parts and then even deleted the other side of the geometry we didn't need. We created a custom selection set, so now we can just focus on these controls, and it just makes animating much quicker because I can just quickly select those. And we've switched our IK-FK for this arm to FK. All right, let's start by posing a couple poses in, a couple of ideas, and then we'll look at moving holds and ease in and out. So let's begin with a pose. What I like to do is, when I'm working pose to pose, is on every keyframe, a keyframe is an important idea. So we're moving forward in time and we're saying this idea is important, key this idea, and when I key that idea, that key pose, I key all controls on that frame. I'm going to pull this up so we get our timeline here, and we're going to shorten the scene. We don't need 250 frames, so we're going to make it 50 frames for now. This here on the right, we also don't need. I'm going to click N while my mouse is in the graph editor. Okay, there we go. Just center everything here. All right, so I have everything selected. Another quick way, the hotkey is just A. So if I deselect, I can hit A, and it selects just those bones. And that's why that collection is really nice. Okay, so A, and let's move forward in time. We'll come to frame 7, and I'm going to hit I on my keyboard. And that sets a key on everything, on all the controls, location, rotation, scale. Just nice and quick. So we're going to do our first pose, and I'm going to get close to what the example video showed before. The arm was down, slightly forward, the elbow bent, and then we're going to work on the fingers. Just a nice starting pose, nice and simple. For the pose, for the fingers, I'm just going to bring them a little closer together. I'm going to select them all like this, deselect any of the ones I don't need, so just the fingers. I'm going to go to my rotation, and when you're animating fingers, or posing them out, I should say, you can go to individual origins, and then it's going to rotate every single control from its pivot point, and it layers that on, as opposed to if you do medium point, it's not going to curve the different parts of the chain. So make sure if you want to curl all your fingers, you're on individual origins. So with the fingers selected, I can now start to pose my fingers. And the way I like to do it is to grab all of them. It just saves time. And in a natural relaxed pose, the pinky is more curled than the index finger, and then everything has a fall off after that. So I just add a little bit of a curl, and then I can start deselecting, and then I'm going to start rotating a little more, deselect. Now the index finger is completely deselected. I'm going to keep rotating, deselect the middle finger, first joint. Okay, deselect. Now the middle finger is completely deselected, and now the pinky gets the most rotation. I found this to be pretty quick and giving some good results as well. Okay, let's relax the thumb a little. So we'll just spend a minute posing this first idea. Nothing crazy, nice and simple. There we go. Okay, so there's our first pose. And now we can begin looking at the second pose. We have to build in poses if you're working pose to pose in order to have moving holds and ease in and out. So we just completed our first pose. I'm going to select everything again. A, or just grab and select. I, make sure I'm saving that data. You could turn auto key on, and I think most of you would and should. These last 3-4 years, I've just been used to not turning it on. And so now it's a habit. So every pose change I do, I just hit I to make sure I record that information. The auto key does that for you. But like I said, I'm not used to that anymore. Okay, our first pose is done. Let's move forward in time. And I'm going to move forward 8 frames to frame 15. Just key it so I can see that gap here, or that spacing. And the next pose is going to be with the arm up. Okay, I'm going to grab that upper arm control and just pull his arm quite back there. Elbow, and everything's coming up. Just pulling it back, just thinking about what an anticipation pose is before I point. Okay, I'm going to work on the fingers quickly. I'm going to select them, Alt R, just to reset the values. And I'm going to do now a fist. The sprite character is creating a fist. Awesome. If right now these controls are always on top of the geometry, sometimes I like that, sometimes I don't. If that's something you don't like, you can come in over here to viewport display and turn in front off, which I like to do. And then I have control using Alt Z to always turn that on and off when I need, instead of always being on. So I do like to turn that off and then have control myself afterwards. We'll grab these last chains here, curl them even more, work on the thumb a little bit, pull it up. Awesome. Oops. So our pose is almost done, and I'm gonna just adjust it as I'm switching angles here. Make sure the hand's not coming too far in front of him. So there's our second pose. The shoulder area is getting a little bit distorted. So if this was a real shot, I would be concerned with that. If it was filmed in such a way where I didn't see that distortion, I don't mind. But seeing how this might be filmed something like this, let's see if we can fix that. Okay, that helps a little. Awesome, so there's our pose. A to select all, I to insert a key. And this is what the action looks like. Nice and simple over 8 frames. What we're gonna do next is create a hold. And that hold is a placeholder of time. So then when we go to refine the animation, that's where we're gonna add our moving hold. For right now, it's called a hold. And this is what we're gonna do. We're at frame 15, and we're gonna decide how long that hold's gonna be. And for me, 27, from 15 to 27, that's 12 frames. Maybe I'm gonna push it a little more than 12, and we might go for 16 frames. So I'm gonna go to frame 31, hit I, and you can see that orange line just means this key and this key is the same, and that orange line means there's a hold, okay? Next, what we're going to do is create our next keyframe. And I'm also going to make that 8 frames. So from frame 31, we're going to go to frame 39, hit I, just so I can see the timing here. And the next pose is the arm down pointing. I'm going to reset the values on some of these controls for this next pose. I'm going to select the elbow, wrist, and my index finger and thumb here, those controls. And I'm going to hit Alt R and Alt G. That just resets the values back to 0. Everything else stayed the same. So nice quick way in this case to get close to the pose I want. Here in the upper arm, I'm just going to adjust the pose. I'm going to Alt G just to reset the value of the translate. But overall, the rotate works well. And I think, let's see here, can we improve? Yes. Again, there's a bit of a pinching here in the upper arm that I want to improve slightly. And just by tilting it down, I think that works. Okay. I'm going to grab that elbow control, raise it up a little bit, and adjust that a little further down. Perfect. Let's grab this index finger, both joints. And you can see Alt Z, just I can see through the model and I can then turn it off, but I've selected this other control, deselect here. So it's just those two index finger controls. And what I like to do on this one is just curve it the other way a little, just to add a little more appeal to that finger. It's really pointing. This thumb, I'm going to straighten this thumb up a little bit. Boop. This index finger can also be pointing in the direction of the arm, so everything is just straight. Same thing with this thumb, just curl it back a little bit. Okay, overall, the pose is looking really good. A to select all, I to insert a key. All right, so here's what we have. I'm going to play the animation. Okay, that's our blocking. Okay. I'm also going to go back and just add a little movement on this upper control here, this upper chest control, just to give it some organic feel. Okay, so as the arm is going up, I'm just going to rotate that upper chest back just a little bit, give it a little more feel that way. Insert a key, select that key, Control C, coming over here to frame 31, Control V, make sure it's the same key. And then on the point pose, that chest area can just be leaning down a little bit. Insert a key. And let's get our hand more in front here. Okay, just adjusting it based off that control there. A to select all, I. Let's play what we have again. All right, so this is the blocking of pose to pose. Now we can begin adding moving holds and ease in and out. All right, so we have our first pose, we have our second pose. Next thing we need is some breakdown keys. And a breakdown key is keys that goes in the middle of your poses. So we have pose 1, pose 2. In this area here, we're going to add some breakdown keys. And the breakdown keys, what they do is they define the movement, the way in which you get from one idea to another, one pose to another. By adding a breakdown key, we add arcs to our animation, and we can play around with spacing and timing that way as well. So let's do that together. Frame 7, and I'm going to start with this upper arm control here. Just select that one. From frame 7 to frame 15, frame 11 is our middle. I'm going to come on over a little bit, one frame before, to frame 10, and that's where I'm going to do my breakdown for the arm. You can offset your breakdown keys to add emphasis to different parts of the body. And not all parts of the body need a breakdown key. Just the parts that you want. Usually it's the COG, that's center of gravity, and any other part that you think needs an arc. So I'm going to start with this upper arm here and just start pulling it down, just like that. Maybe just a little more. Insert a key, go to the elbow, and I'm going to come on over one frame. The closer I get to frame 15 and I add a breakdown, the more movement on that part of the body, and the more movement when you as a viewer watch something, when there's movement, your eye goes to that part of the body. So by adding a breakdown key, you're also helping to direct the viewer's eye. Okay, so I'm at frame 11. Let's grab that elbow control and just pull it down. The main thing we're doing with this breakdown key is adding drag to that action. Okay, let's just scrub, see how that feels. Nice and simple. I think we can do more. So there we go. I'm going to come on over here to that chest control. Also give it just a little bit of a bob down, just like that. Maybe a little bit forward and just pull it down. Okay, let's go to our wrist control. Frame 11 is our middle. I'm going to come on over now closer to the end of the move, frame 12. And I'm just going to drag that wrist. And I'm really breaking the chain up here and adding overlap built into the breakdowns. Okay, just like that. And then when you're doing breakdowns, you can add some dirtiness or some more organicness by just offsetting some of the rotations as well. Here we go. So that's nice. You can see pose 1, pose 2, and as we then scrub, you can see how that offset works in the breakdown. So really successful, but nice and simple as well. And this is our first ease in. We're easing into the move, and we haven't really added any keyframe, pardon me, we haven't added any time. We're not ramping in the traditional sense, but we're doing it in the breakdown. So very nice. You can see I'm easing into going to that final pose by adding a little bit of movement, by keeping that body part in that area longer, and I'm not getting there quickly. So that's a form of ease in. I'm going to show another form by adding a settle. And so you can do it both ways. This is the first way. Okay? When we look at frame 15 to frame 31, there's that hold. I built that hold specifically so then I can have that moving hold later on. So we'll get to that part in just a second. But we're looking at this part right here. So it's working really well. Okay. We're going to skip this part for now. We're going to come on over here to this next section. Now it's the point, that next move. What I'm going to do is add a small pose change. So I'm going to come to frame 39, make sure I keyed everything I have. I'm going to come on over 4 frames to frame 43, then go back to frame 39. So all I've done is keyed 2 places with the same pose. I'm going to come back to frame 39 and adjust this pose. And we're going to now build in an overshoot pose. When you're moving quickly, you don't just stop in that one area. If you have momentum, you go past that area and then come back. That is called an overshoot pose. Cool, so let's just build that in nice and simple. I'm going to grab that upper arm, and all it is adjusting this pose a little past that point. Insert a key, insert a key. You can see how simple that is. The wrist would also get affected here. Cool. The index finger would get affected a little bit, just like that. And the thumb also would have a little bit of effect. You could add more to the different chains and stuff. I'm not going to do that. Select all, insert a key, and you can see that the arm just comes back up. So the arm comes down quickly and comes back up. That pose here is an overshoot pose. But it's not a key pose because the idea is still part of this overall pointing pose. So we go, typically when you're working pose to pose, you go from one idea to another to another. And those ideas should be big ideas or important ideas. They could be smaller in pose size, but they need to be important. That overshoot pose is not important. It's only important when adding the detail. Okay? So frame 31, frame 39, we're going to work on this section now. And what I like to do right here for now, I'm going to select that key. I'm going to go V and vector. So it's going to hit a little sharper on that point. Okay, let's do the same thing we did here. And you can see the formula overall. Pose, pose, breakdown. Then I'm going to add a settle. So here the same thing. Pose, pose, we're going to add a breakdown, in this section here. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to start the exact same way. I'm going to start with that upper arm. 35 is the middle point of this next move. So I'm going to start a little before that and just add some delay here. Don't be shy about it. I'm going to grab that elbow. Same thing. Add some delay. And by doing this, we're doing, again, a form of ease into that. We're not just moving quickly into that pose. There's an anticipation, and I'm building the anticipation into my breakdown keys. I don't have to do a dedicated pose for my anticipation pose for these smaller actions. Okay, I'm going to come on over one frame, frame 36, and again, really delay that wrist. Now, compared to when the arm's coming up, it's a bit slower. In my mind now, the arm coming down is going to be quicker. So the breakdown pose is also going to be bigger. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to scrub and let's just see what that looks like. Cool. So just by those breakdowns, I'm really emphasizing the action more. Okay. Let's finish this action now, and I'm going to show you the other form of adding ease in and out is by inserting a key the way I do it, dragging out that other keyframes, and just having a settle. And that's going to be my ease out here. I'm going to select everything. I'm going to go to the middle over here, and somewhere at frame either 42 or 43, I'm going to insert that key. But before I do, I'm just going to add a little more drag, another slight breakdown, just to emphasize the move on the wrist and on the finger. Maybe here I will do that. The smaller part of the bone. Cool. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to insert a key. So we've done our overshoot pose. So it's pose, pose, breakdown. Frame 39 is our overshoot pose. And then frame 43 is our settle. In between frame 39 and 43, I've added a small breakdown key just on the hand now and on the fingers. So here we go. I'm going to select frame 41. I've inserted a key. And what I'm going to do now is drag or select frame 43 and just pull it out to either frame 47, 49, something like that. I'm going to hit V and make sure it's auto clamped. Okay? And that's our ease out. That's our settle. We're just dragging that last pose out and we're creating a settle. Nice and simple. And you can control the length of that. But let's just play what we have. Okay? So it's looking pretty good. What we've done so far is we've done pose to pose, we've done our pose to pose workflow, and we've added in ease in and ease out. But you can see there's a hold in the middle. That's intentional, and that's what we're going to do for our moving hold now. And you can see as the arm's coming up, it just stops abruptly. That's the kind of thing we want to avoid. You either want to add a settle, a move in, or pardon me, an ease in and ease out, so it doesn't just hit, and then you can have a hold. Or we're going to do a moving hold like I'm going to demonstrate now. So here's that frame 15, frame 31. Many ways to do a moving hold. One of the simplest ways is just to go over to that next pose and just modify it a little bit. I don't like to do it quite that way, but let's just see what that looks like. So the hand's coming up and then it still moves a bit and then down. So let's just see what that looks like. Okay, well, we've added a bit of a moving hold. Already it looks better than before. Okay, I'm going to undo that, but you can see even just doing that does help. What I'm going to do, and sometimes I do adjust the pose depending on the action, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert some keys and delete some other keys. So here's what we're going to do. Select everything. Coming over here, I'm going to go to frame 32 and I'm going to insert a key. I'm going to come in over here to frame 14. I'm going to insert a key. And then what I'm going to do is delete those two keys that are the same that were built in for the hold that was meant for the moving hold. And now we're doing the moving hold together. X, delete those keys. So now we're coming in and there's that beautiful movement all the way through. and I got it for free, but I've dictated it. I shaped the pose, I've held the timing, and then when I'm done other information, now I can go back to that area where I've created that hold, and all I have to do is insert some keys around there, delete that original hold, and I get a free moving hold. And it's more organic feeling. Really simple, very effective. So I hope this example does you guys well. If it does, please let me know. Like the video. Let's move on to the next example. Awesome. And like that, we're in this next environment here, this next scene. And I'll show you what we have. We have a bunch of trees. We have Sprite here. We have a snail, also from the Blender Studio. And we have an audio file here. And then our time range or frame range is set to the length of the audio. So that's what we have in the scene here. I'm going to turn off scrubbing. Okay, and let's also turn on our screencast for this scene. Okay, awesome. So let's see first of all what we have.
Sorry, it wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault.
Okay.
You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault.
Nice. Nice and simple. This character is really appealing, so just a fun character to play around with. Okay, let's zoom in here. I can select, let's see, I'm in object mode, perfect. I set up the scene exactly the same way we did in the arms scene. I love to keep things clean here, and then this is my working window. But if I'm all the way out here and it's hard to get in, I can just select the geometry here and frame into my character. It's a lot quicker. Okay, you can see I also, I was working on the mouth here, but I also did those custom control groups as well. Okay, let's take a look at the animation and break down the process for the layered workflow in order to add a moving hold. Okay, I'm in I'm in pose mode. And what we need is, what I really like about this bone collections is this star, I just made a mouth collection here. I can unclick the star and it remembers what I had visible before. So here I can click that star, just work with that bone collection, that control collection, and then it hides everything. And then you can click the star and that still shows up. I really like that. Okay, so for a layered approach, the workflow is that you want to start with the control that has the most influence on your movement. Usually it's the COG, sometimes it's the head, sometimes it's even an arm that drives the action. In this case, it was my COG, the center of gravity. Okay, so I'm going to take a look, select that control, and that's where we're going to start. This is the keys, and I'm going to demonstrate how I approach that. But it all starts there. And so in pose to pose, I have an idea, I go to another pose, I'm building another idea. I might have a hold, but it's just idea to idea. And then the holds are built into the overall performance so that I can allow you, the viewer, time to see the animation, the acting, whatever it is. And I build in those holds knowing I'm going to add either a settle, an ease in, ease out, or a moving hold for appeal. When I'm doing a layered approach, the idea is still similar, but the approach is different. A layered approach, I'm starting with one control, and I'm only working on that one control, not 5 controls, not 500 controls at one time. One control, I'm moving through my scene, working on that one control, and I'm just moving it. And I keep working on that one control and looking at the movement. I keep refining that movement on that one control until I'm happy with it. And that's what I did for this one, and I'll demonstrate that. But that's the difference. And so when I'm working with that one control, I build in my settles. I build in my overshoots. I build in everything, and I keep refining it until I'm happy. And then I go on to another control and I layer information on top of what I already did. So definitely a different mindset there. But this is the COG control and it moves everything. Okay, so what I'm going to do is select everything, delete it, and then we're going to build the motion in and build that moving hold. Okay, so I'm going to select everything, Alt H, just make sure I have all controls visible, hit A, select all, X, delete keyframe. So there's no more keys in the scene, and now we can work on Sprite here in a layered approach with the idea of building a moving hold. Okay, so a lot of controls on these character rigs. It's easy to get overwhelmed and confused, and that's why these collections are good. At the beginning, just start playing with things and don't be afraid to create your own collection set, your own control collection set. The only one I'm concerned with right now, the only control is that COG right there. That's what we're going to work with. And when I work with layered approach, I still want to start generally in a pose. Not all the time, but the pose still is important. This character is sitting on this tree. If I didn't have that, it would be very difficult to start. Okay? So I crafted that pose in. All right, let's take a look here. So in this case, I have audio. So I'm just going to turn my scrubbing back on so I can hear it. And the audio dictates my timing.
You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault.
So you don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault. I can't remember what I did in my first animation of this, whether you don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault, whether I lean in twice or whether maybe the first one is kind of leaning up and then I lean into it for you don't have to be sorry. But I'll just lean back and then forward. That's my performance.
You don't have to be sorry.
You don't have to be sorry. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault. So I'll do that. I'll build in the idea of a little bit of that little anticipation down, but overall it's the pose up. You don't have to be sorry. And so the body's going to be up overall on sorry. It wasn't your fault, and down on fault. And then knowing that I'll have a little bit of a breakdown, but a little bit of an anticipation down, but it's all subtle. So I'm thinking about these beats because with this one COG control, I have to build that in. And as I'm building these poses, when I get to the moving hold, I'll highlight that. Okay? So I'm going to insert a key. Happy with that for now. To be sorry. So yeah, here we go. You don't have to be.
You don't have to be sorry.
You don't. And I'm going to maybe at frame 9 here, just lean forward a little bit and down a little bit, just like that. Nothing much. Insert a key. You don't have to be sorry.
You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault.
What happened there? Okay. You don't have to be sorry. And then, so here's the first ease in here. So I have this pose. I'm going to keep the character down a little bit, and then I'm going to go up. You don't have to be. So maybe frame 17. I'm still going to go down, but a lot less. And that's my settle. Just like that. Very, very soft. And then I'm going to go up. So just before he fully says the word, I'm going to come up. You don't have to be sorry. Okay. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a lean just to break things up a little bit. But I'm bringing them up now. You don't have to be sorry. Okay. And then the sorry can be bigger, just a bigger pose, not much bigger, but bigger sorry. And when I'm layering information, I also think about what the hands can do, but I haven't added that information. So to me, what I did in the original test is I'm presenting the snail to the audience and up to myself. You don't have to be sorry. So knowing that the body's coming up, the hands have a place to be. But we're not adding that, but I'm thinking about these things. Okay, so So I'm still working with this one control, just trying to build in movements. You don't have to be sorry. Okay, nice and loose. We can always make this a little bigger. So let's keep moving. Okay, but here we go. I'm gonna start adding my moving hold. The moving hold is between you don't have to be sorry. Pause in terms of dialogue. It wasn't your fault. That portion between those words is where I need a moving hold. I don't need my animation to die. So here's the start of my moving hold. It's this pose. I came up into this pose, and then I need a moving hold, and all that is this idea that's still moving. It's the character hasn't died. So it's just I'm gonna probably continue that movement up a little bit, maybe a little to the side, and then it wasn't your fault, and then I come down. Okay? So just before, maybe around here, frame 43. So what do I have? 27, 15 frames here. 16 frames, pardon me, of a moving hold. You don't have to be sorry. I'm going to pull that up. So this is the end of my moving hold. And maybe, oops, pardon me, maybe I'm starting to lean to the other side now, just slightly. Okay? And if I don't like it, I just undo. It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault.
Sorry, it was.
Wasn't. Maybe 51, it wasn't. Now I can come down, forward a little bit. It wasn't. Okay, it wasn't. It wasn't your fault. And then maybe on fault I come up, but it wasn't. So I'm gonna still move down a little. It wasn't. Maybe frame fault. Wasn't. So still a bit down here. Continuing that movement. This, I guess you can consider this a bit of a settle here. Wasn't your fault. And nice and easy fault here. Okay, let's see what we have.
You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault.
Cool. So the timing's off. All I have to do is grab these two keys. It's off by about 2 frames. Let's test it out again.
It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault.
Awesome. Still off a little bit. Sorry. This part here can be held a bit more. 2 frames. Okay.
Be sorry. It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault.
Cool. It might not look like much, but that's a good first blocking. I would not show anyone this, but it's effective. Already it's moving in terms of timing to the dialogue. It's moving, and it's moving in and out the way I want. But I'm not done with this control, this control for this movement, the COG. I would keep refining it. But what did we do? It comes down into that pose change, a bit of a ease in there. Pardon me. Yeah, a bit of a settle here. And then we're coming up into this pose for sorry. And then this is our moving hold. And then we're coming into this. Okay? So let's clean this up a little bit. But this is the example how I would add a moving hold in a layered approach. Okay?
You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't.
Awesome. Let's add a little bit more movement here. It's a little dead, just a tiny bit. Just forward, just tiny. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of a breakdown as we're coming up here, just barely. on that COG. You don't have to be sorry. Adding that arc there. And then here, just before it wasn't your fault, same thing. Let's emphasize that up. And, oops, too much. And we're delaying that COG. And so that's just going to emphasize that movement down.
It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault.
Cool. Already that's playing better. So I'm going to leave this tutorial here because with this layered approach, I would probably refine this for another 10 minutes. Timing wise, exaggeration wise, a little bit of movement. Once I'm happy with that, I would start to layer that chest control and I would layer it on top of the COG. And the COG drives everything in terms of timing. And then by layering controls, I would offset and add drag and overshoots. And then I would go to the head. And already with those three things working, it's going to feel pretty good. I'd add a little bit of keep alive on the feet, then introduce the hands, and then add the eyes here. Actually, there's one more thing I'm going to demonstrate, and that's the blinks. Let's do a blink together here. Because the blink is a good example of an ease in, ease out. Okay, on this big pose here, let's add a blink. We're going to grab these two controls, and let's do a blink here. So we're going to start just as the move is coming up, maybe frame 21. I'm going to insert a key, and 2 frames over, oops, we're going to really pull those eyelids down, and maybe we'll pull these bottom lids up just a little bit. Okay. Boop. We'll shape it just a little bit. Okay, we're just getting that eyelid closed overall. Okay, this one's good. Let's do the other eye. Awesome. So both eyes are now blinked. They're closed. I'm going to hold that pose, this bottom one, for 2 frames. I'm going to copy this pose here, Control C, and let's go. We got 3 frames, and we're going to just open the eyelids. V for vector, and it's just going to come into that pose sharp. So we're blinking, and same with here. We're going to make this one vector. So it's just open longer. And already by doing that, we're easing into the move even more. Perfect, we're easing out. And then here on this last pose, last frame before the full open, we're going to insert a key. And we're going to drag it out maybe 6 frames here. So what are we at? 27, we'll go to 33, V, and auto clamped. And this is a classic example of ease in, ease out, these blinks here. Okay, in these 2 frames, what we have as well is we have the eyes penetrating through the geo. So I would work on that, insert a key here. I don't want to see those, I don't want to see anything in terms of geometry coming through. Perfect. Insert a key, copy. And now that's how I deal with that. So let's.
You don't have to be sorry. It wasn't your fault. You don't have to be sorry.
Okay. Let's just delete the audio for now. And let's check out what we have. Okay, very cool. So what we've done in this example is with the layered approach is I've taken that COG control and I've animated all the way through. I'm only focusing on that one control and I'm building in the poses to construct the acting. And in doing that, I'm building in that moving hold. So that was a demonstration of how I approach that with this workflow. And then I've also demonstrated an eye blink, and in that we see the ease in and ease out. All right, everyone. If you enjoyed this tutorial, this video, please like the video and let me know what else you want to see or what you got out of this video. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.